Hello and welcome to the J&J Show. It's our debate special. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong podcast. That's for our real exclusive content. Hello, I'm Jake Stone,
I'm Jesse Owens.
and we welcome you to another episode of Generally Particular, a production of the London Lyceum. Generally Particular is a show dedicated to discussing and reflecting on the whole Baptist story. We are a show by Baptists, about Baptists, and for Baptists, as well as Anglicans, Methodists, Presbyterians, and Lutherans. And of course, all those people who call themselves non-denominational, folks, they're not really Baptist. I am a Calvinist Baptist, and Jesse is an Arminian Baptist. And in the 17th and 18th centuries, we would have been known as a general Baptist and a particular Baptist. And so we've brought those two things together to create what we think is a fun show to discuss the Baptist story. Welcome to Generally Particular. We are actually recording this the day before the first presidential debate. And let me just say that all of America will either need to be drinking coffee or something stronger, probably something stronger after the debate. Sounds like President Biden's already calling Jesse for debate prep.
It's actually someone else.
So, Jesse, how are things down in your world? We actually got to hang out last week, and
Yeah, we hung out.
we went to McKay's and saw a witch.
Last.
What we did was
There was a lady dressed like a witch looking at Wiccan material. So
she had a hat.
I think the odds are there.
We also saw a lady with a very interesting shirt when we left, but I won't repeat what that said here on the air.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, we can't.
I think though Jesse said that she was a cousin of his family, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, we all have those family members, that you love them, you still love them.
Yeah.
Things are good down here, man. Really hot, like I'm sure they are in Louisville and plenty of other places. Seems like every day's 90 plus. So
yeah, I mean it's been a scorcher. I feel like it really hit here fast. We had a pleasant Memorial Day weekend. We had some really nice weather, and then all of a sudden it came like the plague. And I tell people, my dad says I'm getting weaker the longer that I live up here and away from the Gulf. But it has been muggy up here in Louisville. But I will concede that Gulf moisture, that's a different it's a different category. It's all by itself. But it has been muggy up here.
Yeah, I would assume humidity might be worse. Yeah, I could totally see that. That's a point of pride, though. When I visit my in-laws in South Carolina, they're like, "Well, for however hot it is in Tennessee, we can go ahead and tell you it's hotter here."
Yeah,
I think that's a point of pride for Southerners.
It is. I mean, yeah, we're proud of our humidity.
And Southerners tend to say, no matter how far south you are, when you refer to somewhere else, you're inclined to say up there, or over there, as if you are more southern. Well, up there, and sometimes geographically it is up there, but other times, we're just inclined to think we're.
Well, I mean, I grew up 3 miles north of the Gulf, so I'm pretty far. I
Well,
mean,
now
you can be further south than me in Florida, but that's not really southern. Orlando is not southern. Tampa is not southern. Miami is not southern.
Yeah. Yeah, but now you live up there. I can say about you from where I live up there.
I have embodied what it means to be a sojourner and a stranger in a foreign land.
And by that you mean you have to make regular trips to Cracker Barrel.
Yes, or Raising Cane's is a good backup.
Listen, I was just talking to a friend, Chris Talbot, just yesterday, and another friend, and we were saying, we didn't expect this, but we have another chicken place. I think that's based out of maybe Mississippi somewhere, near Memphis, though, and we thought we liked it as our kind of local chicken place, but Raising Cane's, I think, has better chicken. I think they have better fries. Their toast is better too. And there's that one Raising Cane's near you, isn't there, where Half Price Books is like right across, right next door.
It's actually on that strip right there. Yeah, it's a deadly combination. And on down the road, even from there, is Dairy Queen, which has very good blizzards. Although we've learned this, I already heard this spill last week that Jesse doesn't
Oh,
like ice cream, and
I just said it's. I just said
no,
it's not a
no,
top
no,
five
no,
dessert.
it's not a top. He'd rather have a donut than an ice.
Yeah,
I mean, what? I mean, that's air, air. I mean,
no,
you're gonna tell
no.
me
Have
that Grater's raspberry chocolate chip ice cream is to be desired less than a Krispy Kreme donut.
well, I mean it. I would still say yes, but there are donuts other than Krispy Kreme. But yeah,
I will say
I
one
would
thing
say
that I've always wanted to try, I've never had before, but I really would love. I've seen people do this: is take a donut and cut it in half to make it like a buns, and
hmm.
then put some chicken strips in the middle.
Well, you need to go to. I'm sure the local fair or something has that.
Like
I
a
think it's
fried
based out of.
Oreo. Boy, that would be
It's
amazing.
it's based out of I think Cincinnati, but I want to say they have some in Kentucky. We have it in Nashville, and you can get it at the grocery store, although it's not as good. If I had to choose ice cream from an ice cream shop, I would choose Jenny's ice cream, Jeni.
Mm.
It's actually really good. But Graders is okay, and I mean I know they're right there. They have a location right there by the seminary and all, and I get it, but it's all right. I I mean, if you want to be really offended, I would take a pick almost any boxed brownie mix and make a batch of brownies, and I would eat that over ice cream.
Yeah, but
Look,
see, the best.
I was telling somebody the other day, you could give me a thing of Oreos and a glass of milk, and I would choose that over ice cream.
I don't. I have all these people rag on me because I put 2 cream and 2 sugar in my coffee, as if I'm some apostate.
Yeah, you are.
No,
That's
no, no, no. I mean, have you never heard of cookies and cream ice cream? That is Oreos and milk, cold, frozen.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Ice cream is trying to have to imitate something that's actually better. That proves my point.
I will say this: I do think that the Walmart
No
brand.
one likes just regular ice cream, so they're like, "Well, I guess we could imitate cookies and cream, which people really like." So,
I actually enjoy not Walmart, the Kroger brand Oreos may be actually better than the Oreos
really,
themselves. Actually, yeah,
see now there are certain things that store brand doesn't always work for, and I would have thought Oreos would be one of them, but
those are very good. Now you can't do Cheez-Its, folks. You either buy
no,
Cheez-Its.
no,
I tried to save some money as a poor student and
yeah,
buy the Kroger brand Cheez-Its. I'd throw that box in the trash.
oh yeah.
So
Hey, look,
that's my splurge is to get Cheez-Its each month.
going back to fried chicken for a second, do you have an opinion on Claudia Sanders' restaurant just outside of Louisville? You ever been there?
They're in Corbin. No, I've never. Yeah, I've never been to that. No,
Okay,
but I did
you
have
got
some really
you
good
got to.
fried chicken last Saturday in Smithfield at our best,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
that blackberry cobbler with some ice cream. Oh, it was good.
Hey, look, this is my point. Ice cream, excellent topping, not a standalone dessert.
Wow.
Have you had a skillet cookie with ice cream on top of it?
Yes.
Okay, if you had to get rid of the cookie and keep the ice cream, or keep the cookie and get rid of the ice cream,
Depends on what kind of cookie it is.
it's a skillet cookie.
No, like is it got chocolate in it? If
Oh,
it's
it's probably just chocolate
if it's
chip.
a
Yeah,
chocolate chip, but see,
yeah.
ice cream can bother my stomach too, so I can't I can't eat
You're
I can't eat very
you're
much.
halfway. You're halfway there. You're halfway there to my point of view.
Don't let them fool y'all, folks. Though we went to Culver's also last Friday and got a concrete mixer. So
But
yeah,
that was a sign of our friendship because I wasn't
yeah.
even,
You know what?
I'm not even.
Jesse wants at 95 degrees go get hot coffee. I'm sorry, there's something wrong and delusional with that. We want to go get something cold.
That's That's fair. I
You
I
know,
respect that point.
if we
I do
lived
drink coffee
if
even
we
when
lived
it's
if we lived in the cold Canadian tundra, I mean, yes, we'd still be going and getting coffee in the afternoon in June, but we don't.
sometimes I ride around with my cup of coffee in the car even when it's 95 degrees. So, that's fair. I'll give you that. That's kind of out there. I'm
It's
I'm
sick. Yeah, it's sick.
All right, what are we talking about today, Jake?
So today we're talking about not the presidential debate tomorrow, but if you would like me and Jesse's comments, we'll probably do a live texting thread between each other, and we can share our notes if you're ever interested in our opinions about it. But today we're going to talk about Baptist books. Now, obviously, we're not talking about every book that's ever been written by a Baptist or about Baptists, but just some of the books that we have found helpful, encouraging, and good. It's going to kind of be just a mixture of some things, whether it be theology or history or so forth. So I'm going to start, and the first book that I want to mention is that I have here right here is a recent publication called Trinity, Creed, and Confusion: The
Wow.
Psalter's Hall
Do you
Debates
have
of
any favorite
1719.
chapters in there?
Because Jesse Owens is in this book. Now I've never read it,
Yes.
but
That's
but
okay.
he's in
That's
there. I
okay.
think I probably helped contribute something in that chapter, but I wasn't given credit, which is not new for Jesse's publications. Well, I take that back. He did put me in that last footnote of one chapter that he's written recently. It's in the Arminian and
Yeah.
Baptist book. Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
tucked
put
away
you in
there
a
in the
footnote.
back. Um, but no, you should get this because it'll help Jesse make some money if you buy his book.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Regents Park College, they definitely
yeah.
send me money for that.
No, actually, in that series, that's a very good resource that I highly recommend to people, is From Shadow to Substance, the
Hmm.
Federal Theology of the English Particular Baptist from 1642 to 1704 by Sam Renahan. This is a really excellent volume that shows how covenant theology among particular Baptists developed. And he does a really good job of showing kind of the first generation of leaders, second generation of leaders, and you can kind of see some of the commonalities among them. You can see where things get nuanced and I would say more matured as the years move on. He also does, I think Sam does a great job at the beginning of the book of actually showing the broader reformed covenant theology of the day. And here's the key that I think people will take away from this, Jesse, is I think you and I have seen this. People will sometimes like say all these Baptists have all of these views and streams, but like Paedo Baptists, it's almost presented as this one monolithic view that they just all hold. And Sam shows that
Kind of
that's
like the
not the case.
reformers, It's just
Yeah,
like,
you know,
yeah,
they just all believe the same thing. And, Baptists just deviated from the one common standard. Well, that's not the case. There's a lot of complex differences among, you know, 16th century. I mean, if you're talking about what Calvin writes about covenant theology, it is not the same as what you find in John Owen. And so you can kind
Hmm.
of see, during the development of the Continental Reformers, then the Puritans in England, there's definitely a lot of streams, and Sam really helps situate how Baptist covenant theology. Now, he doesn't touch on the General Baptists really in here, but I know that General Baptists follow a covenant theology stream too. And what I like here as well is he talks about, just briefly, but he gives resources, that the thoughts that you see in the 17th century continue later in the writings of men like Gill in some instances, but also Abraham Booth and Isaac Backus, who's a very popular man these days. And
Isaac Backus?
yes,
What are people talking about with Isaac Backus?
we'll talk about it later. But this is a really great resource. Sam, this was his dissertation that he put in then to book form, and it's just really good, and I highly recommend.
Hmm. Yeah, I've got one from that series I want to recommend as well, but maybe I'll just stick with the theme rather than the series and say I really appreciated Pascal Denault's distinctiveness of Baptist covenant theology, which is an excellent volume, Distinctiveness of Baptist Covenant Theology. And he really traces out kind of Baptist covenant theology again through a variety of Baptists. He includes some General Baptist, like Thomas Grantham. You can find Baptist covenant theology in figures like Thomas Monk and some other figures as well. But I think the way that he shows how Baptist covenant theology is distinct from Paedo Baptist covenant theology or federalism is really helpful. He also has some really good charts in there. And as someone who's probably not great at charts, I respect that and appreciate it. So if you haven't read this, I would say no matter where you fall on things, Baptist, Paedo Baptist, whether you would Particular Baptist, General Baptist, Arminian Baptist. There's just a lot here, and I recommend this to students here at Welch College. It's just a really good book.
Make sure though, I don't know which make sure that you get the revised edition though. Is that his first copy or second copy?
I don't know.
Does it say revised edition on the front cover?
Not on the front, I don't think.
Yeah, so you need to get his revised because he actually refined a few things based on some feedback that he got in the initial publication. And I think he even tweaks a little bit of how his charts are laid out in the back as well. So I would definitely, if you're going to,
I'm going to have to get in that. This is brilliant of him, Now you get. I got to buy another copy.
You're welcome, Pascal. I'm helping you make some money too.
Thank you.
But yeah, definitely get the revised edition. So if I were to pick one really good, I just remembered that there was one book that I didn't grab that I wanted to get, and I'll talk about in a minute. This is one of my favorite biographies, William Carey by S. Pierce Carey, which was William Carey's great-grandson. This was done about 100 years ago. I think it was 1923 was when the first time that it was published. Yes, it was, and so over 100 years ago. First of all, we actually are in need of a good critical biography of Carey. Timothy George's volume, Michael Haken's volumes are very good, but they're introductory. They're not, in depth. This is more in depth, but the problem is S. Pierce Carey didn't footnote or endnote or anything like that. So this is a little bit of a different, time when people wrote books and things, and so that's the frustrating thing. He gets bogged down in some details at times. It can be a little, you're like, why is he focusing? But it's a really good read, and it really helps you follow the story of Carey. And I promise you that if you read this thing, you'll be hard pressed not to cry at the end at Carey's death, and just kind of the scene that S. Pierce Carey. Well, the S is for Samuel Pierce. He's Samuel Pierce Carey, because it's Carey's. I get confused, but Carey's line and Samuel Pierce's line, their children, descendants. There's a marriage there, it brings the families together. And so I just would really, William Carey is one of my favorites from Baptist history, and I would just highly recommend this as just a good biography and a really good Baptist biography.
I didn't pick it, but that kind of makes me want to recommend the biography of Judson, To the Golden Shore, which is a great book, long but really well written.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's one of the things we need as we think about not only Baptist history but biography, is things that are well researched, where we understand the nuances of the people and the time, but that are also well written, and that's hard to do. Going back to the Regent's Park series, Clint Bass has this book on Thomas Grantham and General Baptist theology. Thomas Grantham is kind of the foremost, I would say, theologian of the General Baptist of the 17th century, at least one of. I might put Thomas Monk ahead of him, but Thomas Grantham wrote a lot more. Bass does a great job tracing out, I would say, the nuances of Grantham's theology as well as General Baptist theology. I think he deals with the Caffin controversy really well in this book. He has another book on just the Caffin controversy, and he seems to kind of change his opinion on that. I didn't follow him as closely on that interpretation, but this one on Thomas Grantham is good. And by the way, I would just say generally, since we've pointed out two of these books, go online and find this, the Center for Baptist History and Heritage Studies at Regent's Park, and just look at the volumes in here. In our circles, Jake, we probably give these a lot of attention, but I would say for the average listener out there, you may not even be aware of this series. And there are some really good, well-researched volumes in this series, including the Renahan volume. But Thomas Grantham, General Baptist Theology, that one's great.
And I have read that book.
He did for me. I appreciate that.
Yes. Well, you encouraged me, and I was trying to be a good friend. So,
I appreciate it.
So that brings us, I'm still on the Carey generation, and this book holds a very special place for me. Ardent Love for Jesus, learning from the 18th century Baptist revival by Michael Haken, because this is the book that really introduced me to these men. And I really came to love them, appreciate them, and consider them to be, in a sense, friends for me. And I just love it's a quick read. It is very, very good mixture of, you get a taste of some primary sources and then Dr. Haken's commentary and insights. And I just would, I love this section. It always struck me that when he talks about the relationship between Carey and Fuller, that when Carey learned of Fuller's death, he said just three simple words: "I loved him." And I think it's a reminder that this group of men were forged and built together on friendship. And I just highly recommend, I recommend this to people if you're kind of wanting to get introduced to the generation of Fuller and Carey. This is a great work to read.
Yeah, by the way, I would agree with that. When I was picking books off my shelf, I almost picked that one. It's really compelling. It's well written, but looking at those men's relationships, it's a really good book. And Haken has some other ones like that too. But Ardent Love for Jesus is one that I recommend, kind of in the same way that you mentioned. Just like if you're looking for something that's kind of a foray into the subject, it's really good for that. All right. I'm gonna go with I picked the wrong volume up. I'm gonna go. I'll do one I have here, and then I need to swap my volumes out because I actually grabbed the wrong one. We talked about this probably before, but Will's Democratic Religion. This is a fascinating book, really well researched. It's an Oxford Press book, but as he traces out, I would say specifically church discipline in some associations, specifically in Georgia, right? It's in the state of
Yes.
Georgia, I think. Yeah. And he talks about the decline of discipline over a period of time and the significance of that. Not that disciplinary needs or cases dropped, not as if people suddenly became more holy, but because we lost a sense of meaningful church membership and the importance of church discipline. And between, he traces it from 1785 to 1900, you just see a precipitous decline in church discipline cases in these particular associations. It's a short book, again, really well written. I think Democratic Religion is a solid one.
Yeah, I think if I were teaching a class on ecclesiology, it would be a required read for me, because I think it
Yeah.
really does a great job of tying in several things. Church discipline, associations, and also the function of confessions and creeds in Baptist life as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he traces that out towards the end. He talks about associations and the role of confessions within the local church, and then for cooperation association. So yeah, I think that's a great point. It's kind of like it's one of those books that has like a it can be used for teaching. It has kind of a didactic function in teaching history, but like you're saying, also the importance of church membership and discipline and associationalism. So it's like, get a sense of the history of the particular associations and churches he's tracing out, but also learn something about how Baptist church governance worked historically.
So this next one I'm recommending is a really good history. It's a history of the English Calvinistic Baptist, 1771 to 1892. So basically, this covers from the end of John Gill to the death of C.H. Spurgeon. This is by Robert Oliver. It's a Banner of Truth book. And what it's been several years since I read this, and there's a part of me I would like to go back and read through this because I feel like I've grown some more in my own understanding of Baptist history since the first time that I read this, probably like 6 or 7 years ago, actually. But Oliver does a really good job, I thought, even back then, of being fair to the different kind of groups in the particular Baptist stream. I mean, there's a lot going on here. There's controversies with hyper Calvinisms. There's a controversy. He deals very, I think, faithfully with Abraham Booth and Andrew Fuller. and again, really good primary resources that he's citing and utilizing, and so I think this is actually, to me, one of the most underrated Baptist history books that I'm aware of, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of it, because it is a, I mean, I love Banner, but most people don't think of Baptist history being something produced by Banner. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of why maybe it's not as well known. This is a great resource, and I would highly recommend people to pick it up and read it. Even if you don't want to like read straight through it, I mean, you can see that he's got it divided up in good sections where you can kind of see. I love his section on Booth and Fuller. He entitles it Part Two: When Good Men Differ, and I think it's a great
Mhm.
way of framing the controversy between them. So I highly recommend this.
Yeah,
I feel
that's
like
a good
Mark Dever
recommendation.
too. I love this. I kind of feel like Mark Dever when he's doing his book recommendations. So
Oh, well, okay.
I
All
don't know
right.
who you are,
So,
since you're not a Calvinist. You can't be Mark Dever. So I'm not sure.
yeah, I'm not even sure I'm allowed to be here. Um, um, all right. So there's this series that you have from the Baptist Historical Society. I don't know if you get these anywhere other than their website.
Not that I'm
So
aware of. No.
yeah, I think you have to order them from their website. So Raymond Brown, I think, does the one on 18th century Baptist, but
Yes.
the
Yeah.
the B.R. White volume on the 17th century Baptist is, and I took my dust jacket off. Sorry about that.
Here, I've got
Um,
mine right here. I can.
okay. Yeah, there it
They are
is.
not the
Well,
most. They are not the
now,
most aesthetically pleasing books.
now you can see why I took the dust
And,
jacket
and
off.
what I think one of them's printed like upside down.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so again, there it's a series, so on several centuries. But B.R. White's one on the 17th century, the English Baptists of the 17th century, it's really short, as you can see here. But I feel like for again covering a whole century of Baptist life and thought, it's a really nice kind of broad overview. You're not going to
Yeah.
get all the nuance, but you do get honestly a surprising amount of nuance. So I would recommend this. B.R. White has some other works. He's a really great historian and a good writer too.
And what I like
So
about that volume, to just to add to what Jesse's saying, and as too, is he kind of deals with some of the obscurity as far as some of the more kind of obscure people or groups, and gives you at least, he gives you a taste of who they are, and like if it's something that interests you, there's some material that you can then go down that rabbit trail further.
yeah, yeah, no, that's right. The first time I read this was probably a little over 10 years ago, and I was really just shocked by how he does this in, I don't know, it's not even 200 pages, I
No,
don't
no, not
think.
at all. I don't
Uh,
think so.
yeah, maybe 175 or so, 150. I mean, again, does really well. So I would highly encourage, look at this one. Also the one from Raymond Brown, 18th century, but I really like B.R. White, 17th century
I
Baptist.
know you're going to laugh at this when I share this anecdote, but I actually remember exactly where I was when I read those books. I had actually come up to Louisville for to spend a week. This would have been in the fall of 2020, and it's actually a park over in the Douglas Hills area. It was our fall had come up here early. It was cool, and I was outside at that park reading it. This would have been in September of 2020. So yeah, Jesse sometimes admires, but I think he also he jabs me a little bit about my vivid memory of things. Said I.
Yeah, well, Jake will tell me things like, I remember the day when I had to call my mom and tell her that Ronald Reagan had died, and I'm like, I,
I do.
uh,
I remember that.
I mean, I admire that. I wish I had as I don't know, like strong of a memory as you do. And I mean, we all have vivid memories, but you've got quite a memory.
I sure remember
So
when
yeah,
Jesse took me to the Cajun restaurant in Nashville that doesn't exist anymore. I remember
yeah.
that one.
See, this is the downside to Jake's memory is he also can't let anything go. So there's also
You
that.
know.
So if you ever wrong Jake, you just need to know
No.
and this was an accidental wrong. We've talked about this on the show before. There was a Cajun place
Well, you're
nearby where
still
I
having to
live
defend yourself too,
and nearby
just
Welch
repent.
College. And I thought I thought I was doing something nice. In retrospect, I can see it was a really dumb decision. I get it, but I was like, there's this Cajun place. Uh, Jake's in Louisville now. You were in Louisville, weren't you?
Not yet. I was about to be.
Okay. Anyways, I'm like, I don't love, Cajun food's fine. I don't like crave it or anything, but I thought, Jake might like this. I'll take him there. That was a mistake. So I apologize, Jake. I will never ever again try to take you to a Cajun restaurant
Yeah, please don't.
ever again.
Unless
So
unless it's on the Gulf in the South, and in that case, I'm the
which
one that
which
needs.
means you would be
I
taking me.
exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Well, speaking of somebody who knows his Cajun food and Southern food, Dr. Tom Nettles, and
Mm.
by his
Hey,
grace,
that's a classic right there.
by his grace and for his glory, was really probably the first full treatment of Baptist history that I had read, apart from the Trail of Blood. But that really that
That's a really full treatment. I
disqualified.
mean, he only went back to like the
Well, I
17th
know
century.
we do have some landmark brethren that listen, so I just want to be qualified and be encouraging kind of. So it is a Baptist history book, but this here really tracing out the history of the doctrines of grace in Baptist life, and I think it's very well done. The section, the actual, and I encourage people to get the 20th anniversary edition because of the intro and then some good appendixes, and especially in our current moment where we have such things being debated these days. It's a good chapter on liberty of conscience in the back as well, and and of course Dr. Nettles is and so when I had him for class, I wanted him to sign, and I have several Dr. Nettles books, as most of you probably could guess, but this was the one that I asked him to sign because this was the one book of his that meant the most to me in my own journey and my own development. So I highly recommend this
Yeah.
one.
And he signed it.
He did, yeah.
I bet I wouldn't be shocked if he was kind of hesitant to do that. He's like, that
Well,
seems like a lot of
he didn't
attention.
mind that. We had somebody in that class who had 5 of his books and asked him to sign all of them. So I I think he was okay with just signing my one.
Oh man. Let's see.
Jesse's already run out of Baptist books. He doesn't have any more. So
Well, I mean, I only brought like 6,
you got a
but
whole bookshelf behind you there.
well, I know I could have picked any of
Well,
these,
here, I'll
but
keep
I
going then. All right.
I didn't know how to bring.
I have more. So we've talked about this one several times. James Leo Garrett's Baptist Theology, a 4th century study. Really well done. Excellent. I think this is good because it covers not just the normal British American Baptist, but Baptist globally, which I think sometimes can be lacking in our studies and our engagement. And I would have some quibbles with some of his analysis in a few places. I actually learned that he's the person in his writings years ago who coined the phrase Dortian Calvinism. That was not a phrase that was used by anybody prior to Garrett, and I think it's a good descriptor. And so I return to this, and also it's very good because of, again, the primary sources that he points you to in the writings from these men.
Jake, we talked about doing a Baptist theology, so I'm just gonna give my Baptist theology now. I'm gonna go with the 17th century Baptist theology that I had printed at Kinko's because it's no longer in print, and I
That's how
pulled it from
dedicated Jesse is.
early English books online. Well, I'm about to show you it, and that is Thomas Grantham's Christianismus Primitivus, or Primitive Christianity. And I like to remind Garrett Walden, who refutes my claim, that this is the first Baptist systematic theology. Now, Garrett can say he doesn't think it's a good systematic theology. I told him I could live with.
He said it was kind of scatterbrained. What, isn't it?
So he said, "Is it because it covers everything? Because it covers basically, a wide range of doctrines." And I would say that's true. It's not. It's not a sort of standard systematic theology format. It's not. It's not even what you find in like Calvin or Puritan or something like that as far as organization. It is kind of a compilation of a lot of things that Grantham had written up to that point. So there are some things that are brought in from other places. But yeah, a lot of great things in Christianismus Primitivus. I've made a lot of use of it over the years, and he's got the Nicene Creed in here, interestingly enough. So here in Grantham Systematic Theology, we find the Nicene Creed. So yeah, I would recommend this as a Baptist theology from the 17th century.
And then a Baptist systematic theology from the 19th century that I would recommend is James Pettigrew Boyce's Abstract of Systematic Theology. Really the last of its kind in many ways. It was written from a reformed confessional standpoint that's not going to mark any Baptist systematics for over 100 years after Boyce.
Mm.
You can see the influence of Charles Hodge, who was his teacher at Princeton, but you also can see Boyce's, I would say, biblicistic principles and impulses at times. It's kind of can be a little frustrating, especially in some of his writing on the Trinity and Christology in some places. He can sound very scholastic and confessional at one time, and then it's a little bit more biblicist in how he unpacks things elsewhere. But I think it's really good. His section on the atonement is excellent because what he does, not just with the atonement, but several things, is he lays out the different views and walks. This is this view, and then where does he land? And so I think I have some disagreements with Boyce in some places, but I think this is a really underrated and very good Baptist systematic theology from a confessional standpoint.
Mm.
Okay, and then
Is it my turn now?
oh, do you have something else?
I do.
Okay.
It's also from the Baptist Historical Society, and it's Challenge and Change. Again, they're not great at
Very
covers over
interesting
there.
cover.
Yeah, they're not very good at covers. They're not a cover people. This is an edited volume with some really interesting chapters. There's Peter Morden has one in the Particular Baptist from 1689 to 1815 that I think is really good. Stephen Copson has a chapter on the English General Baptist. He has a really interesting section where he talks about the regional nature of General Baptists, like how there might have been differing beliefs and approaches to things in different regions. And I think that's something we've talked about on this show even recently is what a given set of Baptists might believe in a place like London may not be what they believe in another part of England. So that context that he really brings out is really solid. So yeah, Challenge and Change, English Baptist Life in the 18th Century. He doesn't say long 18th century though, but he does say the 18th century.
My last book that I want to recommend is
Uh-oh.
in connection with someone that I, Lord willing, hope to do PhD work on one day, and that has been very much in kind of some interesting thoughts that have been espoused on social media concerning him, and that's Isaac Backus. And I highly recommend people purchase Isaac Backus on Church, State, and Calvinism, collection of his pamphlets that he published from 1754 to 1789 and edited by William McLaughlin. And I highly recommend this is a great source. But I want to add something here today is that you need to read Backus.
Everyone sit up straight.
Yes, because I appreciate what McLaughlin did as far as compiling these sources. But in every one of these, McLaughlin writes an intro essay, and it's McLaughlin's interpretation of Backus. And I disagree with him at times, and there's other people who have as well. And I think it's a word of wisdom for all of us as we do history to be very careful that we never take a secondary source's interpretation and almost equate it with what the actual figure said. And furthermore, in doing good history, you can't really tweet it. And what I mean by that is that these old men back in the day didn't write in such a way for 280 characters. And I wish sometimes they would have, but you really have got to read this goes back to our episode with Dr. Nettles. You have to read them in their entirety, in their context, and that's slower and takes more
Isn't that? I
time.
was going to say, isn't that a lot of work, Jake? I mean,
It
like,
is, but we need to get it right. We
yeah.
need to be honest and not dishonest, and we don't need, whether we're doing this or reading the Bible, we don't need to come with an agenda and then go try to find what verifies it.
Do you think I could just pull up Backus's works on my desktop and then just like click Command and then F and then search in there and see if I could just like find a relevant passage and then like post it online as if it were his definitive view? Would that
I
work?
don't think that's the best way of doing it.
Oh, okay.
There's something been going. A lot of people talking about that he supported, oaths, taking an oath to be a part of the legislature, affirming the Christian religion, and he makes a statement. But if you read it in its context, before and after, and what he's talking about, that is not. McLaughlin says another place he praised the Massachusetts state legislature. He does not praise him. I mean, that is where, that's like when you read all these people that say rigid Calvinism. Jesse wouldn't say that, but some people do. That's already giving you a connotation. If I say that Isaac Backus praised the oath, well, that makes it sound like he was all in favor. Well, in 1788, when they're debating ratifying the U.S. Constitution, he said religious tests and oaths have been the greatest engine of tyranny, going back to Constantine. Now, that does not sound like somebody that praised the usage of oaths and Christianity to be seated in the legislature. And I think
That's interesting.
Do what now?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's pretty helpful.
Yeah, and it's
Roger Williams
context.
Yeah. Roger Williams says Christianity fell asleep in the bosom of Constantine. So
yeah, I mean
there
was not really any love for Constantine and among any of those guys. And I think too, and I want to say this: any notion that they had of a Christian America was premised in religious liberty, where they could preach the gospel. People were converted and made a part of a Baptist church. That's what they saw as how it was going to happen, not from some top-down government coercion. And so I think we need Backus. As I have read him, I've tried to study him. There's a reason that I would like to commit myself to doing a dissertation work on him, is because I think he in some sense is the last of a type in many ways as well, which I would say was a confessional Baptist in New England. Really after him, that begins to fade as, the influence of Feeney and others will begin to impact Baptist life in New England. So, but this is a great resource, and, I commend the work that McLaughlin did, but again, McLaughlin is not Backus. And that goes for anybody. That Jake Stone is not Backus. We need to make sure that we let these men speak, and that requires actually reading them and reading them in their context.
Well, folks, that's your reminder. Don't try to co-opt historical figures or their writings to prove your 21st century point or agenda. That's right.
Isaac Backus was not a magisterial Baptist.
I'm still just baffled that anyone would come up with that phrase.
Well, we kind of hope everybody enjoyed this kind of, looking at some different books and resources that we would recommend. And again, make sure that you are prepared if you decide to tune in to the Biden-Trump debate tomorrow night. And so until our next time that we're on, we'd like to say, stay Baptist, my friends.
Stay Baptist.